In this video, we're reading chapter 18 of my novel. It's called Time Not Here. It is available on Amazon. If you can't afford it, send me a message and we'll send you a copy for free. The fatigue of the last 14 hours descended onto his body. He was drained, empty. He didn't want to take another dose. He decided to freshen up, go outside and get some air. He placed his feet on the ground and immediately felt weak. The visuals were mild, colors were vivid, and there was a faint vibration in the air, but no images. After using the bathroom, he looked in the mirror and saw how tired he was, a heaviness of the eyes and a complete lack of expression in his face. He made eye contact with himself and leant forwards. His eyes didn't look like they usually do. There was almost a glow to them, a brightness. He brushed his teeth, replacing remnants of the bitter Kimber powder with a cool and refreshing peppermint. He spat into the sink and rinsed his mouth. As he straightened up, he felt his heart beating in his chest. The steady thud of each pump echoing through him, the blood flowing outwards and around his body, as vivid as the fluid flowing through that tree. His heart skipped a beat, almost as if it had been so surprised at being noticed that it forgot what it was doing. He walked towards the stairs and went down to meet Magda, who was pouring hot liquid into a thermos. It smelled like chamomile tea. "Hello, Daniel." Magda smiled at him and held out her hands for him to hold. He took her hands and said nothing, smiling at her and locking eyes. "Do you want to take some food?" she asked. Daniel nodded, and she directed him to a table holding a dozen or so portions of yogurt, neatly arranged in little glass jars. He took one, found the bowl of teaspoons, picked one up and pushed it into the yogurt, watching as it spread under the pressure before spilling over the edges of the spoon and filling it. Raising the spoon to his mouth, he inhaled through his nose and smelled the strawberry flavor. As he placed the spoon in his mouth, he felt the cold of its metallic frame touching his tongue as the muscles in his mouth contracted and pulled the yogurt out of its concave. That was the best mouthful of yogurt I have ever tasted. It was not an expensive or fancy brand, nor an exotic flavor. It was just store-bought generic strawberry yogurt. Yet it brought him such joy to eat it, because he was actually there with it. He was letting his attention rest on the simple pleasure of eating a mouthful of yogurt. And it was magical. Magda sat him down and asked, "How was the journey?" "It was amazing. Yes, a very good journey. But I feel like I haven't resolved one thing and the effect it's had on me. When I was 6, a classmate killed a mouse in front of me. Sometimes," Magda cut him off as she placed her hand on his shoulder, "we can go back to a memory and change the outcome. Maybe by acting a different way or saying a different thing. When Kimber is present, we can take the power away from those things by doing this." Daniel nodded, then walked outside into the bright afternoon sunlight. He could feel its warmth. He smiled and gazed around the garden, noticing the intense green of the plants and the busy bees buzzing around the flower beds. It was beautiful. He spotted Dominic, lying on a foam mattress on the grass, staring up at the sky with a deep peace over his whole body. He looked like a different man. "Hey," he said quietly as he approached him. "Hey," Dominic smiled back. "You feel it?" "Yeah, it's quite something. I call it the Kimber glow. It'll stay for a while. Mine lasted 3 months for the first time." "Is it always this intense?" "Nah, it fades, but it's still there. You just have to remember to feel it." Daniel found another mattress and pulled it over to a sunny spot near the flower beds. Laying back, he closed his eyes and thought about Ethan. He remembered what his house had looked like, as he'd been there once when his mother was doing a favor for Ethan's, helping her with an essay or something. It was a messy house, full of clutter and That had made him feel uncomfortable. A parrot was stood in the cage in the middle of the room and enthusiastically squawked with a profanity it had been taught. "Fuck you, cunt! I don't give a shit!" He recalled that shortly after the day with the mouse, Ethan had been sent to a boarding school in Kenya, for reasons that were never made clear. When he'd left, Daniel felt relief, then promptly forgot all about Ethan until many years later. Why was he so cruel, he wondered. What drove him to murder that mouse in front of me? As he lay, eyes closed and breathing slowly, the darkness transformed into bright orange. He no longer felt his body. He can sense motion, forward-moving and oscillating in height as if he's walking. The bright orange reduces in glare. He can see sand on the ground beneath him. His feet are small, blue trainers with Velcro straps. He looks up, a baseball cap. To his right, a brown-haired boy, same school uniform, a skip in his step. Looks down, hands cupped, holding a white mouse. Scurrying around, it tickles. I love this mouse. Ethan talks about snakes and scorpions, cats and wild dogs. It's pretty cruel, actually, letting this defenseless mouse go free in such a dangerous world. He's lived in a cage his whole life. He doesn't know what a snake is. He doesn't know that he should run away. Daniel feels uneasy. Something awful is happening. There's no escape. If you really love that mouse, you'd put it out of its misery before it gets eaten up by a snake. It's a painful death, you know. The snake squeezes until he can't breathe, and his ribs break, and then it swallows him whole. We're supposed to free him, Daniel pleads. They reach the high sandstone walls of the school grounds. Let's just let him go here. He'll be fine. He'll be safe. Are you really that cruel? Ethan scowls, contempt on his face. I can't believe that you, a good little boy from a good little family, would leave such a defenseless creature here alone when there are snakes just waiting to eat him up. Daniel can't speak. He's never heard things like this. People from church, his parents, his teachers, none of them would ever say things like this. Ethan picks up a big stone. Look, we'll just drop this on him and make it quick. He won't feel a thing. He'll be saved from a bad life. Now, put him here, in this hole. He points, a foot wide and 4-inch deep hole. No, Daniel growls back. He knows this is wrong. If he puts that mouse in the hole, then Ethan will kill it. It will be his fault. His teachers will not forgive him. His parents will not forgive him. Don't be an idiot, Dan. Just do it. I'll drop the stone. You don't even have to watch. I'll take the heat if we ever got caught. You just put him in there. Daniel looks at the hole. He's seen scorpions out in the dunes, big and scary looking, large claws and that big curled tail. He imagines the mouse stung with the poison, eaten by the snake. He starts to cry. Ethan is sure this is the right thing to do. It doesn't feel right, but Ethan is so confident. Daniel crouches down and drops the mouse into the hole. It scampers. It's trying to find a way out. Good boy. Ethan raises the stone. He's holding it above the mouse. Daniel closes his eyes, turns away, his hands over his mouth. He's crying out in tears. The vision fades into darkness. He opened his eyes and stared at the sky. He was back on the mattress, by the flower beds. This was the furthest he'd ever been in that memory. It was time to learn the truth. Please, he begged. I'm ready. Show me what happened. After a few moments of silence, Ethan finally spoke. No, I can't do it. If my parents find out, then they'll send me away. They told me they will. I don't want to go to fucking Africa. Ethan kicks Daniel in the back of his knee. His leg buckles. He turns in anger. Here, Ethan tries to give him the stone. You have to do it. No, I don't want to. You have to. If you don't, he'll die a slow and painful death. You have to put him out of his misery now. He pushes the stone into Daniel's chest. Daniel grabs it. He doesn't want it to fall on his toes. Ethan grabs him hard on the shoulders, pushes him to the hole. Do it. No. Do it, you little shit. No. If you don't, I'll kill you, and I'll kill your family. I'll kill your cats. I'll kill everyone you love if you don't drop that fucking stone. Daniel can't see. It's blurry. His legs are shaking. Do it! He opens his hands. Thump. Everything went black. He had no vision, heard no noises, felt nothing. A high-pitched noise started ringing. He felt a heaviness, like he was being crushed. Not the pain he got when he stubbed his toe or grazed his knee. This consumed his whole body, overwhelmed him. Nothing existed but that pain. The ringing faded. He heard laughter. His eyes started working again. Ethan was jumping around. You did it! I made you fucking do it! Ethan laughed. Daniel looked down. The stone was moved. The crushed body of his little friend was stuck to it. The blood blackening in the heat of the sun. Its bones turned to dust. Ethan stomped over, stood inches from his face. In his eyes was darkness. He raised his hand, held out his finger, and pressed it to Daniel's lips. Shh. The perspective pulled out the back of Daniel's childhood viewpoint, as it had done so many times during these visions. Daniel saw his 6-year-old self stood, motionless, expressionless, staring blankly, no sign of humanity in his eyes, no tears, no rage, just frozen in the hot sand. That was the day it started. That was the day that defined the next 20 years. That was the first time he had been confronted with evil. That's the day he learned that dissociating from reality protected him from facing the horror of what he had done. All the drugs, all the women, all those attempts to become so inebriated that he blacked out, all of it was trying to reach that same heavy darkness, to find relief, to release himself from the shame. No wonder he kept making the same mistakes, running back to the same vices. He was unable to accept that he had ever made a mistake. Because if he did, if he said, I messed up there, then that would mean he'd have to accept that what happened here on this day in the heat of the Arabian sun, that was real. Miscommunications with people at work were ignored. Bad decisions were explained away and then forgotten about, only to be repeated days later, all because he had not been able to accept that he dropped the stone. He killed that mouse. He saw a flash of memories past his eyes, exposing the program that subconsciously ran every time he realized he had made a mistake. I messed up. The first time I messed up was horrific. I can't think about that day. I'm not going to think about this. Where is the whiskey? He felt a warmth grow in his throat. In the still sore area that had popped so loudly a few hours ago, the warmth grew to a heat, then into a fire, as he saw the image of Ethan stood in front of him once again, shouting at him to do it. He looks down at the mouse in the hole and the heavy stone held by his hands. Calmly, he looks up at Ethan, stares him dead in the eye. With courage and strength, he speaks. No. He turns and throws the stone to his left. Ethan is silent. He can't believe it. He feels still, that peace, that fearlessness he'd felt staring down the giant spider, that confidence he had felt as a gorilla running through the jungle. Daniel opens his eyes to see the sun above him, thin wispy clouds drifting by. A voice speaks softly into his ear. It is finished. Thank you very much for joining me for this rather challenging chapter. A lot of very, very heavy stuff in this one. If it resonated with you, if it took you on a journey somewhere, I hope it was pleasant. I hope it was calm. I hope it was with grace and humility and surrender. We're all walking this road together. It may be scary, but we can do it, right? Thank you for your attention. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, and I will see you again soon. Chapter 19 coming up.